Hello, my name is Mark Gibson, and you're listening to the podcast version of the Teagasc Signpost Series, a weekly webinar that promotes and examines sustainability in Irish farming. Hello, and a very good morning to you, and you're most welcome to today's Signpost webinar. We hope you're keeping safe and well. And today, the health and safety of farmers we will be discussing. It is a significant challenge for the Irish farming community. And unfortunately, fatality rates in agriculture have remained stubbornly high over the last 20 years or so. And of course, let's not forget about all of the injuries as well that are taking place on Irish farms. Not all being reported, of course. Already 2 people have lost their lives in Irish farms in 2024, too many, I think you will all agree. So today we'll be discussing managing health and safety on the farm in the busy spring season. And we're delighted to be joined by Dr. John McNamara, who's Senior Farm Health and Safety Specialist with Teagasc, and also Francis Bligh, who's a farm health and safety specialist with Teagasc also. Good morning, John and Francis. You're most welcome. And Pat, good morning to you. You're going to help us with questions later on. How are you today?
Great.
Good. Great. So John and Francis, I have the pleasure of working closely with you both. Maybe, John, could you just give us a little bit of a background to the work that you're doing within the farm health and safety team within Teagasc, very briefly?
Yeah, well, basically, we want all advisors and educators and Teagasc messages to reflect health and safety. It's a really important, lifestyle issue, but also a sustainability issue. Now, we also have a very strong partnership with the Health and Safety Authority and with the Farm Safety Partnership representative of all the various farming organisations.
And Francis, I know you're involved in a lot of events as well across the country, and a lot of publicity campaigns. Can you share us a little bit behind the motivation of those and what you do through those?
So all the events obviously have their own various teams. We're working very closely at the moment with the team in Grange in relation to the development of an event this summer in June for Beef 2024. So our I suppose, focus for me would be to ensure that health and safety is threaded through the whole event and all the various advice that's been delivered, and some bespoke, I suppose, advice in relation to farmer health and some demonstrations on health and safety. So we try to do that with all the events across the year.
Great. Without further ado, John, we'll hand over to you and we'll take questions afterwards.
Oh, great. Thanks, Mark. I think in the stock market they say past performance. You should have a look at that. Whether it indicates future performance is another question. We would hope in farm safety not, that we can make improvements. So I'm going to show some fatal accident data for last year and for the last 10 years, prepared by the Health and Safety Authority, with whom, as I've said, we have an excellent working relationship. Before I go into the data, I'd just like to point out the horrific consequences of both fatalities, obviously, but injury also. Pain and suffering, disability, loss of income, loss of independence, poor health, mental health issues, and dare I say it, worse. So that's what we're talking about. So it behoves us all to make the efforts. Apart from fatal accidents, there's about 4,500 non-fatal accidents on Irish farms. Here is the headline data, and tractor headline data for 2023, I should say. This is last year. So about 25%, 4 accidents occurred with tractors and machinery, 31% with livestock, falling loads 12% too, falls particularly from heights 19%, 3 of them, and drowning, and I'll come back to slurry with a further presentation later too. So that's the scene for last year. Now, looking at the overall trends, we have been able to bring accidents down, but we have never been able to keep them down consistently. Looking at 2014, the huge number of accidents, huge workload on farms at the time, a lot of rushing, and a lot of people caught trapped between rolling tractors and vehicles and trailers, that sort of area, along with fodder crisis. Maybe if I move on to the last couple of years, from the middle of 2020, we had COVID, and accidents in the first half of the early part of 2020 were high, but when COVID arrived, they suddenly reduced. So we feel that lack of labour on more labour on farms, people working from home and being available to help, was probably a significant factor, along with maybe respect for the health services and people not wanting to go in hospitals. Now, regrettably, fatal accidents are going up, and last year there was 16 fatal accidents. So one is one too many, but far too high. Now, overall, the point I want to make is that accidents are coming down, but the figures are variable. But older farmers over the age of 65, the second line from the top on that graph, they have gone up over the last number of years. Younger farmers from 17 to 64, as you can see, there's a long-term trend line downwards there. And I'm glad in 2022, and I think in 23 also, no childhood fatalities. And now just look at a quick look for the last 10 years on fatal accidents. And vehicles is the big issue, followed by livestock, followed by falling loads, machinery falls, and that. So compared to last year, a lot more vehicles on average and than last year. Last year there was a lot more livestock in our Irish farms. Vehicle fatalities, just to look at those for a second, and getting knocked down on the farm is the biggest issue, whether it be with a tractor, with a loader, quads, and there's new regulations there on quads, trailers, excavators, and others. Falls on farms, and there's 24 of those. And they're a big area of concern. Falls from heights, falls from roofs, falls from ladders and roofs, falling off vehicles. So the simple stuff, falling from, literally falling off a vehicle or slip or trapped between bales. They were the main issues there. Now, by age group, over 65s, let's have a look at those. And they account for half the accidents. Then 55 to 64, 19%. And, as you get into the, 45 to 54, 9%, but then it goes into lower. So age is a significant factor with accidents. And, older farmer safety is a huge issue. Childhood accidents, predominantly involving machinery, either getting knocked down is what I would say, or falling off a machine, or a tractor or a vehicle is the big issue there. Livestock accidents, it used to be all about bulls. But, if you look at this slide, it's not about bulls. Bull accidents are still there, but cow accidents have increased. They may be about 30% or 25 to 30% of the accidents. But livestock, all livestock can be dangerous due to their size and weight and possible aggression and that. So that's something that's important to note. Now, the over 65 accidents, a lot with vehicles, a lot with livestock, and a lot with falls and falling loads. Right, those are the main points I want to make about livestock. I think, as I said at the start, I think the point we want to make is we want to learn from the past. There are three, let's call them bullseye areas. One is tractors and machinery and, around farmyards in particular. Another is livestock, particularly cows and bulls. and another is falls, particularly from heights and on from roofs. And older farmers, particularly, are significant victims in accidents. They account for half of them, in fact. So
of course,
we can
that
learn from
reflects
that.
the change of average age of farmers as well, of course, within the farming sector. John, we have a question just to Hin. I think it might be worth talking about it now. The question is in relation to suicide and how is that accounted for? Is that recorded in those figures that you've presented, or where would that be available?
No, it is not accounted for in those figures. These are work-related accidents related to work activities. Suicide is, it's a voluntary act, so it's excluded. Now, I should say that my colleague, Dr. David Meredith, is studying suicide rates in Ireland, and we have a European seminar. We held, Safe Habitus, a European grant. We held a seminar in Brussels recently. Suicides in France about 20%, somewhat higher than the rest of the population. And the research that David and his colleagues are doing is kind of showing that suicide levels are somewhat higher in the whole rural area than urban.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, John. We might bring Francis in now for the second part of the presentation. So, Francis, you're going to focus on some of the sort of practical advice that farmers can take on for the next number of months, and it is a dangerous time of the year. Cows calving, and movement of animals and handling of animals and so forth. So and of course being organized is an important part of that. So if a reminder that we have the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and if anyone wants to submit some questions for both John or Francis, please do so. Thanks.
So really, yes, what Mark has said there, my main focus here is, I suppose, the practical aspect of, we've seen a lot about the statistics where the fatal accidents are happening. John has presented them very well. I'm just really talking about maybe some of the main issues that we're going to face during the spring season, and we are facing currently. And really, it all boils down to, how the decisions that we're making every day about the jobs that we're doing. And one of the big areas that we need to be focused on is workload. So how much work do we have? How much time do we have to do it? And are we able to kind of fit everything in a sustainable way? So, the research would say that we need to keep work, rest, and leisure in equal proportions, if at all possible. Obviously, this time of the year, the work will increase a small bit more, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that it needs to be sustainable, or it's going to have an impact on us or other people that are on the farm. We need to make sure that if we find that workload is too severe, or there's too much to do, we need to get help. We need to seek help, or we need to find ways of bringing in help. And that sometimes can mean, contractors doing certain jobs that they're specifically tailored to do, or maybe hiring in casual labor, or just trying to find some help on the farm, not letting it get on top of you. We need to make sure that we're getting sufficient amount of sleep. When that workload increases, when we're trying to do, burning the candle at both sides, sleep can be the victim, I suppose. And a recent study from the Irish farmers conducted by Dublin City University found that almost one in four of the people that responded to the survey said that they felt burnout, and over half had sleep issues. So that's, stark in relation to, the problem that's out there. And at this time of the year, these issues can be even more severe. And if you have too much to do, your head is going to be going through all the various jobs you have done and what you need to do. And that can affect sleep, and it can make it worse. So it's important to kind of take action and try and, manage your sleep and manage your workload. The next step is diet and exercise. It's very important, during busy times, that you plan regular meals, that you're there at a specific time or within a reasonable amount of, at that time, to have your regular meals, and try to avoid snacking. Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity 5 days per week. we are out and we are about as farmers, looking at stock, doing our jobs, and we think, I suppose, that we're getting a large amount of exercise. But when we think about it, really, how much or how many times during the day, do you feel like that your heart is kind of racing a small bit? That physical exercise, and that's what we need to have. We need to be fit. Obviously, being out in the air, it's healthy, but we need to ensure that we have that fitness level as well. And we need to think about that. And obviously, if there's any issues there, we need to kind of regularly kind of visit the doctor and make sure that we're checking them out and that we're getting the regular NCTs. I suppose for a lot of farms at the moment, going across all the industries, whether that be dairying, beef, and also some tillage farms, calving is a busy time of the year. So what are the main messages we have there? It's, again, think about the job you're doing, risk assess what you're doing every day, and don't rush in. Identify animals that, before you rush in to help an animal that might need assistance with calving, identify what she's doing, think about her temperament before you help her. Obviously, before, try to make sure that she's in good health. Vaccinations are important to prevent issues associated with weak calves and maybe scours, and, that will increase your workload. So good healthy animals will reduce workload. Make sure you have your calving pin, but also make sure that you use it. The Health and Safety Authority would tell us that, their inspectors find that a lot of farmers have calving gates and calving pins, but not always are farmers using them. So it's important to make the decision to move animals into them pins and use them. Always keep that physical barrier between you and the cow. And that also means when you're tagging the calf or doing anything else with the calf, make sure there's a physical barrier between you and the calf, and the cow, sorry. Always seek help. If you find that the task is challenging, and sometimes that can happen as you get older, it's always seek help, and always make the decision, that as you get older, that maybe the number of cows that you have need to be reduced, or maybe you're not able to deal with cows calving anymore. So these are kind of decisions that we need to be making as we get older. John talked a lot about, those accidents, the increase as we get older and our mobility reduces. Safety at lambing time, again, good healthy animals will reduce workload. So spend time and devote time to making sure animals are in good condition and that they have the correct vaccinations and they're good health status. Make sure you have the lambing facilities in place. Make sure they're well maintained and secure. Good lighting. If you're out early in the morning or late at night, you need to make sure that the lights are in place. Get the electrician in, replace the bulbs, any wiring that needs to be fixed up, get them to do that as well. Have facilities in good condition and manage things well. The lambing cameras are excellent. There's a grant there, 60% grant at the moment through TAMS 3 for calving lambing cameras and also for upgrading lighting. They're great for reducing the number of times you have to come into the shed, and obviously, it'll help you maybe, take a little bit more rest time. Back injuries, a big issue for all farmers, but especially sheep farmers. You have Osborne, with a recent research project was done by Osborne, and she found that 56% of farmers reported back injury or reported a musculoskeletal disorder, and about 40% of those were back injuries. So, try to make sure that you have good facilities, that you're not running around the shed trying to get sheep into pens, that you have the gates in place, that everything is in control, is done in a controlled manner. Zoonotic disease is very important to consider. Again, the vaccinations are for your sheep is very important. Also, hygiene for yourself. And, one other message we'd have is, make sure you don't bring, I suppose, dirty or clothes that might have some issues in relation to the viruses on them or discharge from animals on them into the house, because that can if it get in contact with people, it can cause a problem. You have toxoplasmosis and different things like that can cause a problem. So, hygiene is very important. Use your protective clothing. Take it off before you go into the house, and wash before you go into the house, and use your gloves. John talked about the other big issue in his statistics there in relation to farm vehicles. So very busy at the moment. Jobs are being done, and John will talk about slurry. But there's other issues. I suppose jobs have been done on the farm with machinery. And those blind spots are the big issue that we want to try and ensure that farmers are aware of. So being knocked over and being crushed by tractors and farm vehicles is where a large number of the deaths are occurring, and the HSA, Health and Safety Authority, are finding that. Again, John mentioned quads. Every person that operates a quad on a farm now must have training complete, and must also risk assess the job before they use the quad, and they must also wear a helmet. So it's important to consider that. Again, we do a lot of work, I suppose, trying to emphasize the importance of drivers being aware of the blind spot and family members being aware of blind spots around tractors and machinery. So if there is activities on the farm at the moment, like slurry, like tractors moving and operating, smoke spreading, cleaning out sheds, make sure children are kept very far away from the activity, that they're supervised, and that other people that are on the farm, that they make sure that they keep a safe distance away from operating machinery, because those crush injuries and people being knocked down by tractors is a big issue, and it's something that we need to focus on and try to reduce injuries in this particular area. I suppose we're into the season now for fertilizer spreading, and thinking about it and making it happen. Again, workload, it's one of the main questions that we try to ask farmers. Do you have time to spread the fertilizer? Are you very busy at the moment? Is it something that you can get a contractor to do? They can take it on as a specific project for themselves. And when they get used to the farm and where to go and the rates you're putting out, then it's something that you don't have to be thinking about. But if you are thinking about it, make sure you plan in advance, make sure your machines are well maintained, that they're attached correctly, that if there is any maintenance that's required on the machine or the tractor, that it's done before you start doing the work. So you need to risk assess the fertilizer spreader and the tractor and make sure that it's done correctly. And if there are people on the farm, young people maybe sometimes get the job of spreading the fertilizers, that they're well trained, they know what they're doing, and they're competent to do it. The fertilizer type that you're getting on the farm can have an impact. So, consider maybe bulk or big bag options. It can reduce the need for manual lifting of the 50 kg bags. But when you start increasing the weight, you change, I suppose, the risks. So you're dealing with different risks when you have heavier weights. Store fertilizer safely and a clean level surface. Beware, it's a big message we have, beware of damaged bags, as they can cause sudden movement and collapse. When the fertilizer starts to seep out of the fertilizer bag, then the center of gravity of the bag changes, and it can move, and it can allow other bags that are surrounding it or above it to move also. So it's important to consider that, to think about it, and to be aware of it, and to always have your eyes open for it. If you are using bulk fertilizer, maybe sometimes it's on tillage farms, ensure the store walls are structurally sound. It's important to cover it to prevent the moisture getting into it. Conditions can become slippery. When you're moving bags around the farmyard, think about sharp edges on whatever you're lifting them with. There is equipment available that are specifically designed for moving the large bags. The hook needs to be well rounded and no sharp edges. Obviously, it's very important to never stand under or close to raised bags. Always keep that little bit of distance, that if something goes wrong, that you're not in the crush zone. Complete the task and lower lifting equipment. So obviously, when you start the process of putting fertilizer into the fertilizer spreader and you lift the bag, make sure you continue until you have the job done, or at least leave the bag down and make sure it's safe. Don't leave it hanging in the air. If you're not there, or if you're not close to it. When emptying bulk bags, it's recommended not to cut from the base of the bag, just cut a little bit above the base, or to the side of the base, 15 centimeters above the base in an X, and let the fertilizer out. There is a large number of different types of knives that you can get that mean you don't have to be reaching in underneath the bag to allow the fertilizer to come out. In relation to the small bags, 50 kg fertilizer bag is really a two-person lift. If you were on site, it would be a two-person lift on a construction site. So it's a two-person lift, and it's something you need to consider. You can cause severe injury, as I said. Aoife Osborne found that 56% of farmers have a musculoskeletal disorder. So it is something that is, something you need to consider. So obviously, avoiding having the small bags will remove the risk of it causing a back injury. But if you do have the small bags, it's a good idea to maybe to place them at waist height. So some farmers would leave them on a trailer so that you're moving them or sliding them rather than actually having to lift them from the ground. Manual handling is very important, and having good lifting techniques. That would mean, lifting with a broad, stable base, feet flat on the floor. Use your knees, bend your knees, and use your legs for the lifting. Keep your back straight. Grip firmly. Keep the bag close to your body. So keep the fertilizer bag close to your body, so you're keeping the center of gravity close to your body, and use your legs to lift. And always walk in the movement. Don't be twisting your back while you're lifting. So that can be a high risk activity. So you lift it, you use your feet to change the direction rather than your back. Okay. A large number of farmers still out there are part of the liming scheme, still have to spread lime. What message we have for you farmers and anyone else, I suppose, bringing lime onto the farm is, think about where you're going to store it before it's spread. Think about the lorry coming in to tip it. Where is it going to? How is it going to get in? How is it going to get out? Is the ground conditions good? Are there any trees that might be an issue? Are there any overhead power lines? Think about egress and access and egress of the lorry. Again, for people that are loading, they like areas that have slopes. They don't want to be on the side of public roads. And again, overhead power lines are a consideration as well. So just think about that and advise the lime contractor of any high-risk areas on the farm. And if you're in that activity yourself, use a dust mask, use the mask and the eye protection. We have a series of videos that we really would encourage people to go on the Teagasc website and view. There's about 22 videos on all types of different aspects of farm safety. And it's something that we really, really would encourage. There's a very good video, just as an example, on farm vehicle safety and blind spots. So yourself will learn as a farmer, but if you have young people on the farm or other workers, encouraging them to view the videos is a very good idea. So they're just some messages, Mark, that we have for people this spring.
Great, thanks, Francis, and thanks, John, as well. We have a few questions coming in now, but please do keep your questions coming through. And a reminder to people that there is a huge amount of resources available on the Teagasc website, including those videos. Francis, for people who maybe aren't farmers or working with farmers, coming around visiting farms this time of the year, what advice would you give, or how, if they spotted something maybe that they felt, and oftentimes it does take a third party or a fresh pair of eyes to identify something. Any advice you'd offer there?
I'd always offer the advice I would always I suppose the advice I would offer would be that people would always have the conversation. Not to let it pass, not to let the opportunity pass. Just to mention that you think that this particular activity or the hazard that you identified, that it's very important to let the farmer know, because sometimes they don't see it. And sometimes you could they pass by it every day and they just don't notice, because you get familiar over time on your farm with your farm and the way you do things and the activities the way you manage the farm, and you may not always see the risk and the hazard. So it's very important to have the conversation with the farmer if you notice that there's an issue on the farm. And if farmers have other people coming on the farm, obviously we would really encourage farmers to ensure that everybody comes to the house first, that they don't wander down the yard, and that there's that separation between the house and the yard, and that if visitors are coming, that they're supervised while they're on the farm.
You talked about the 56% of farmers suffering from musculoskeletal disorders, and a large proportion of those are back problems. John, we still see the 50 kg bag of fertilizer being offered to farmers, and I see the construction industry now. It's a 25 kg bag of cement that's offered there, and we don't want to go down the route of producing more plastic either. But does it make sense having those types of dangers there? I mean, oftentimes we know that farming is a solitary exercise, and getting a second person to help lifting a 50 kg bag is often not so practical.
Yeah, no, there has been a huge shift towards the 50 kg bags, over time, and I think that is beneficial, provided people have the correct mechanical, hoist, or to lift the bag.
I think you meant a shift away from the 50 kg bag.
Oh no, yeah, sorry, a shift away,
Yeah.
from the 50 kg bag. Apologies, towards the larger, is it quarter ton or half ton bag?
Yes.
And that's the right way. Now, the legal, the key to lifting anything is correct technique. Now, there is no legal limit to what you can lift, but 25 kgs is about what health and safety would recommend you should lift. So moving towards the bigger bag is beneficial, provided that it's done safely. There are dangers with it.
I might come in there, Mark, just for a second. I know the Health and Safety Authority are having conversations, I suppose, on the possibility of moving to the 25 kg bag with the fertilizer industry. But obviously, all the machines are set up for the 50 kg, so it's a process over time. And I know John is going to cover a little bit on slurry as well in a few minutes. So it's kind of one of those things where we need to, I suppose, identify the best ways we can do these jobs, and if we can move to the 500 kg, the half ton bags, it's the way to go. But we need to have the facilities, we need to have the equipment, and we need to have the know-how, and we need to do it safely.
So, John, we are coming into the slurry season now, or well, we're in it at the moment in parts of the country. What advice are you offering there?
No, I have a short PowerPoint on it, so there's a considerable amount of advice. Maybe I see John Flynn has answered the question there, asked me a question, about accidents coming down and that. No, but John, the issue is, no, we have brought accidents down, but keeping them down is the challenge, And anytime there's high awareness and people are kind of exercised about safety, they come down, and then people get kind of, let's call it complacent, or they forget about accidents, and they tend to go up again. Now, particular successes, under the age of 55, accidents have come down significantly. Power shaft, now there has been one this year, but but power shaft accidents have come down. So we have successes. But they're being replaced by other issues, particularly tractor knockdowns. Now, just about accidents, like they're really caused by the impact of energy, whether it's a power shaft or a bag or whatever falling on somebody. And I think just from Francis's talk, like you really have to be alert the whole time to avoid accidents. You need good behaviours, but you also need good facilities.
Question for Francis. You mentioned quickly some of the support on TAMS for cameras. Would you mind just give an idea of the broader level of support under TAMS for various health and safety infrastructure that might be useful on the farm?
Yeah, so the TAMS 3 scheme, under the farm safety element of the scheme, it provides 60% grant funding. So there's a wide suite of different options under that particular stream of the scheme. One of the main, I suppose, ones that farmers are very interested in is cattle handling facilities. You can get them fixed or you can get them mobile. Sheep handling facilities, either fixed or mobile. As we said, the lighting in farmyards, you can get granted towards upgrading your lighting. Also, in relation to skylights, you can get granted for bars under skylights. You can also, get there's a kind of a pump for PTO shafts, replacing the PTO shaft with a hydraulic pump. So there's a large number of different elements there. And what I would say is I'd encourage farmers to talk to their advisor if there are any types of work that they'd like to do on the farm, to see if there's grant funding available to help them and support them to get that equipment on site. The calving pin, I should have mentioned, the calving pin is one of the big issue areas that you can get, that we're really encouraging farmers to consider, and the calving gate and head scoops and backing gates, and backing bars, anti-backing bars. So they're all there at 60% grant funding for all farmers.
Francis, just if I look at the car now, there's all kinds of sensors on the car to identify where people are around the car and a lot of dangers. But is there any similar development in farm machinery to try and alert, or is it just does it just get too confusing?
Well, when we talk to the Health and Safety Authority, they will always say, like, they've tried the sensors, they've tried the cameras, they're all useful. They're all brilliant in relation to if they're on the equipment. Some of the bigger loaders will have sensors for people around them. Some of the bigger machines in relation to balers and tankers will have cameras on the back of them so that you can kind of see where you're reversing, and you'll have monitors in the tractor. But they will always say, the HSA will always say to us that the best method of preventing knockdowns is that, the people that are surrounding the machine are aware of the fact that the driver can't see them. So there's an education piece there in making sure that the driver is aware of his or her blind spots, and that the people that surround the machine are aware of their blind spots, that they're just not being able to see, that they need to be well outside the zone where they can be crushed by these machines. And yes, there is equipment, but it's a second phase of prevention. It's not the first phase. The first phase is keeping out of the crush zone.
Okay, John, we can see your screen fully there. So if you would like to.
Great. No, slurry is a big issue, and so that's consequently I have to produce a PowerPoint. Now we have a leaflet on it, on our website that was prepared with the Health and Safety Authority, and it was prepared sadly after the Spence tragedy in Northern Ireland in 2013. And that. No, so the key point, I think you saw from the diagram earlier that about 10 people die, either falling into slurry tanks or gassing and that. Now, pathologists have difficulty in deciding at times, whether it's gassing or whether it's drowning. A person might get some gas and get a bit faint and fall in, that sort of thing. No, but the crucial point I want to make is to guard slurry openings, whether they're lagoons or whether they're underground tanks. Okay. Now, the next thing is air, windy day, ventilation, and I'll have to more or less emphasize that, any dull day when there's no air movement, that's when fatalities with gassing have taken place. Never go into a tank, This is a specialist task. You need breathing apparatus, you need harnesses, you need training. Never go into a tank. Okay, and just while I'm with this graphic, the power shaft, people tend to know that slurry tanks have rotating power shafts. All power shafts need to be covered and never go near the shaft. Make sure warning signs are in place. And lest I forget to say it, slurry gas detection systems we're on sale, but the HSA has strongly not recommended them. They cannot, they should not be relied on. Right, there are numerous gases, but hydrogen sulfide is the big one. But there's carbon dioxide as well that can develop inside an empty tank or semi-empty tank. Methane, which on the continent causes an odd explosion, and in Ireland also, and ammonia. Lack of oxygen in tanks can be a problem. Greatest issues occur when the gas is released after agitation, long storage, or when effluent is added. Now, hydrogen sulfide has been the big killer, but lack of oxygen is the other one. So the occupational exposure limits over 15 minutes is 10 parts per million. At low levels, that level, you'd get the smell of rotten eggs. No, but my colleague J.J. Lennon and Peter Frost in Ireland, they did a study in Ireland some years ago, and there's been a more recent study in the UK that shows that up to 10,000 parts of parts per million of gas are released, which is lethal, instantly lethal. Now, the research work would show that, when the crust is broken and slurry is released, that's a huge peak. But within 10, 30 minutes of good ventilation, slurry gas levels drop. No, one thing I want to emphasize, and I feel there is a deficit here that could compromise safety. But, adequate slurry and soiled dairy washings, you need to have adequate slurry. No, this is related to stock numbers, and we all know that dairying increased, so we need enough slurry capacity to deal with it. We need to keep out rainwater, albeit slurry needs to be at a certain moisture to be spread properly, but generally we need to keep out rainwater. The best time to spread slurry is when the grass is growing, and if you're putting it out in other times of the year, earlier or in wet ground, you're compromising environmental issues and that. But very often cattle can be in sheds and you're compromising possibly safety also. No, the weather has changed, and there's a lot of rain at different times of the year now, and we need to account for that when we're calculating slurry capacity. So what I'm saying overall is investment is needed, I believe, on farms. Right, just with buildings particularly, pipes or channels or cracks, from slurry tanks leading to other buildings can be highly dangerous, where slurry gas is blown into them and, it can actually concentrate in those areas, and there have been a number of instances in Ireland related to this. So, the buildings need to be checked as well. Air movement and blowing over slurry, that can, unless the gas can dissipate into the air, then it can build into lethal levels. Now, slurry movement, around farms, there's road usage, pipes crossing roads, using the bigger tankers with the trailing shoe, that adds maybe 1.5 tons to the back of a slurry tank. So that can change center of gravities, and, a good solid tractor is needed to control it, and care is needed on slopes and that. And, when I'm talking about slurry, just to remember hygiene, the can spread infections. So washing facilities, covering cuts, having a first aid box, all that is important. So there is an excellent leaflet, a sign, I should say, available from the Health and Safety Authority. And, we would encourage people to get that, download that sign and, put it up. And more importantly, to remember the key messages which are spelled out on it. Okay, I think that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Really, really excellent advice there. Slurry season is always a dangerous time, and of course, subsequently silage season as well, which is not far away in many parts of the country, particularly down south. John and Francis, you both spoke a lot about the farm fatalities and the kind of physical risks. I know you're also doing a lot of work around the whole mental health and farmer mental health. I attended an excellent session organized by one of our colleagues there recently, and it was very, very practical steps of what farmers could do to address some of those stress issues. And I do see some questions coming in from our audience this morning related to that topic of reducing the stress and those pinch points of the year. Maybe both of you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. And there's two aspects to stress. One is farm-related stress, right, due to farming, and the big issues there, quite frankly, are workload. People are busy. It can, put them, they lose sleep and that sort of thing, and stress can build up. Mental health issues can build up. Another one is, let's call it paperwork or bureaucracy or whatever you want to call it, but advisors are there and consultants are there to help people with the type of farming that has to be done now on paper. Poor health and safety conditions, that is a stressful area. And poor health, causing disability, and that, if people are in pain, that can cause stress also. So I would say we have a leaflet, Positive Mental Health, is available on our website. But advisors and consultants are available to help with farming issues. Now, there's a personal side to health as well. And what advisors and consultants can do there is signpost farmers towards health, health agencies. And a doctor is generally the port of call for the health services. So we would encourage farmers to look after their health, take time off, realize the symptoms, of stress in themselves, and seek professional care advice, and that. So it's a combination of both, work-based stress and personal stress, and gaining health literacy is a huge issue. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Francis?
Yeah, so just to follow on from John, and John has it very well covered in relation to the main points. But maybe back to what I was saying in relation to workload, it's, if you can kind of manage your farm in a way that makes it efficient, I suppose, and you try to avoid that increase in workload. And that would mean maybe, as we said, talking to the contractor, what type of jobs can they do to help? And I know there's a financial implication for that in relation to, you have to pay these people to come in to help you. But if you do find that stress is a problem for you, then it's important not to let it fester and not to let it build, not to let it get worse. It's important to make the decision to talk to people, talk to your advisor, see if they have maybe some pointers that they can give you in relation to ways to reduce the stress levels on the farm. There is advisors. There is an on-farm ground training being provided by the Department of Health and the Department of Agriculture for advisors over the next 3 years. Now, some advisors have already gone through it, but that's largely to encourage advisors to talk to farmers and to help farmers with stress and to help them manage stress. So that's important. And the other thing, I suppose, for people watching, is that you may not be the person that's feeling stress at the moment as a farmer, but your neighbours might be, and it might be a good idea maybe to stop the car and let down the window if you see them, opening a gate or along the road, and have a conversation and a talk with them. Sometimes loneliness can be an issue as well. So, you might not be the person that is feeling the stress, but you might have a positive impact on someone that is feeling stress. And you might be able to kind of, nudge them in a certain direction for them to help themselves. All we can do is try to help.
Francis, really, really solid advice there. Pat, lots of questions coming in there.
Couple of questions coming in relation to the potential role of knowledge transfer groups to highlight. And there's one question each on both the stresses and mental health issues, but also on a proactive approach of discussion groups going around the farm and trying to engage in activities of identifying issues, I suppose, to support an individual farm, but also to raise the awareness. So what role potentially is there for those groups?
No, absolutely. And, there is a huge volume of material there, and the Department of Agriculture, who specify the requirements, want mental health covered, on these events, at these KT events. No, I would say generally like that discussion groups, KT events are absolutely hugely important in promoting, adoption towards health and safety, both in changing farmers, helping farmers to change their own mindsets and to see issues on their farms, and let's say 14 or 15 pairs of eyes is much better than one. And improved adoption has been well shown around KT and our discussion groups. So we'd encourage totally.
There's a question there, and it specifically calls out chainsaws and the fact that farmers don't tend to have the proper safety equipment. How good are farmers at ensuring that they have the safety equipment that supports them in the various jobs they're doing?
I might take that, Pat.
Yeah,
So obviously with chainsaws, we are really encouraging all farmers that have a chainsaw to go and get on a training course and learn how to use the chainsaw correctly, and learn the various pieces of equipment that they need to keep themselves safe, and how to manage them and how to use them and how to protect them. There's a large number of different pieces of equipment that keeps the chainsaw safe and also will help to keep the operator safe. And then there's a large amount of knowledge required in relation to the types of cuts and different ways of managing different types of timber. Really what we'd say there is that obviously having the boots, obviously having the chainsaw trousers, making sure you have the gloves and the helmet and the ear protectors, but knowing how to use them and knowing why you're using them is just as important. So taking the time out for a day to go on a training course is very much time well spent. And widely, I suppose, across agriculture, there is that make do attitude. Like I have this job to do, I have this type of equipment, I'm going to make it work one way or the other if I can at all possible. And that can cause challenges, and that does cause a risk, and that will increase the hazard. If you're trying to use equipment for the wrong purpose to do a particular job that it's not designed for, then you are increasing the risk. And it is something that, we do try to encourage farmers to make sure they have the correct equipment for the types of jobs they're doing. And make sure they have the competence to do the work, they have the skills, and they understand the type of challenges that are associated with the work, and they don't put themselves or anybody else at risk.
Yeah, and I think it's taking that moment to think about, what sort of time do I need to allocate to this job here? From rushing, of course, leads to problems as well. Francis, you mentioned about the chainsaw training courses. You also mentioned quad training. Where can those courses be accessed?
So there's a large number of training providers across the country advertising the course for quads. So every farmer that has a quad on their farm and that is functional and they use or intend to use it must have a training course complete. And any other person on the farm, whether that's sons or daughters or any other person that might be working on the farm, if they use the quad, they must have the training completed as well. And what really that means is that farmers need to, look at in their local co-op. There's usually signs up. There's usually signs up in the local Teagasc offices. If they go online, if they're tech savvy and go online, they can put in quad bike training, and a number of different service providers will pop up. And it's usually most providers are providing a one-day course for people that have experience of using a quad, and it can be a 2 or maybe a 3-day course for people that don't have any experience of using the quad. And the legislation also requires farmers to have a safety helmet, and also to ensure that they do a risk assessment before using the quad. So, we have, if people want to contact us, we have a list of providers, but that's changing every day as new training providers are added to the list.
There's a question there about road safety, and I suppose there's a couple of elements. This one is where you have ingress and vehicles coming out of fields, potentially leaving effectively muck on the road, but also, I suppose, general ingress and egress to roadways, and making sure that there's safety precautions taken. Any comment on that?
Yeah, no, I'll take that one. Road safety is, public safety, road safety is hugely important, and it's high risk, cars passing at whatever speed, 30, 50, 80, 100 kilometers per hour. Now, the farmer, whoever puts the muck on the road, has a duty, first of all, you should prevent it if you can. But if you do, you have a duty to remove it forthwith, in law, you have a duty to do it, Now, the person who asked the question mentioned about the construction industry, with road sweepers to clean them. Well, they're available for agriculture as well, so they should be used and used thoroughly, to do it, So the big issue is prevention and prevent the slaughter of the muck on the road if possible first. But keeping roads clean also needs to be done and done immediately. I just mentioned as well, like warning signs are and that, bollards, those kind of areas are hugely important, but you need a license to put something on the hard surface of the road, but they can be put on the, on the sides of roads, on the ditches, on the, the edge of the road, the hedgerows and that sort of thing.
Okay, I think we've time for one more question, Pat.
Yeah, no, there's I suppose a question about farmers. You talked about fitness, and I know there's a local group near us. There's a farmer group who a number of them had back problems, and they took on a combination of Pilates and yoga to try help them, and found it very beneficial. And a lot of people might kind of snigger at a farmer Pilates group, but I think the point you make about fitness and appropriate fitness and I suppose therapeutic fitness has a potential role to play for farmers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe could I just quickly comment? We have an article coming up in today's farm in that area, but farmers are getting lots of steps, maybe 14,000 steps a day on farms, but they're not getting moderate to vigorous exercise. So what you say, Pat, all those areas of exercise, are very worthwhile and useful, and, going to the gym. And, the article we have focuses on increasing moderate levels of exercise. Thanks.
To encourage the cardio side of things. Yeah. Look, we are out of time. Francis and John, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really useful advice there, but also on the big picture of the numbers of accidents and fatalities that are occurring still on Irish farms, and that older age group at a particular risk. So I wanted to say thanks to Mary O'Loughlin and Yvonne Maher in the background as well for helping us out. To reminder also that the applications are still open for the Teagasc Environmental Sustainability Awards. The closing date for that is the 29th of February. So if you or somebody that might be eligible or interested, do visit the Teagasc website for full details on that. It's an online application process. Next week, we're going to be joined by Tom Houlihan, who's our forestry specialist, and he's going to be talking to us about forest creation options on the farm, which is particularly relevant given that there is a new series of schemes that have been launched by the Department of Agriculture. So that will be of particular interest to anybody who's thinking about planting forestry, or they have clients or people they know who are considering that as an option. So until next week, have a good weekend, and we will talk to you again. And a reminder as well that all of the content from today is available on the Teagasc website, and of previous webinars, you can go through all of the archives for right back to 2020 to 2023. So please do, if you want to avail of those presentations and videos, they're all there to be used. And we encourage anyone who wants to use them with groups, you're welcome to do that as well. So we'll leave it at that, and thanks again to everybody.
You've been listening to the podcast version of the Teagasc Signpost Series, the weekly webinar that promotes and examines sustainability in Irish farming. Don't forget to join us live every Friday morning for our latest webinar. For more, visit teagasc.ie. And you can also rate, review, and subscribe to the Signpost Series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Mark Gibson, and thanks for listening.